Hello everybody, I'm David Coury from the Humanities Department in Modern Languages. For my daily distraction, I thought I would take a look at the days of the week and the origins of the names. If you're like me, this whole pandemic and stay-at-home order has really made the days of the week sort of blur together from one day to the next, and it's hard to remember what day it is unless I look at a calendar. So I thought it might be of interest and hopefully a daily distraction for you to think a little bit about the origin of the names of the days of the week and where they came from, looking at them in a couple of Romance languages and a couple of Germanic languages, and maybe that'll help us keep track of the days a little bit better. So when starting, the first day of the week is quite simple, the day of the moon, Monday, moon of course in English, and day. And in Romance languages, we see quite the same thing. In Spanish, la luna is the word for the moon, and lunes is the word in Spanish for Monday. In French, lundi, the same thing, there with lun. In Germanic languages, we see in German, der Mond is the word for the moon, Tag is the word for day, Swedish, Måndag. And here we can see that English and German and Swedish are all Germanic languages. When looking at the word for day, there is a correlation between the D and T in day, Tag, und Dag, which gives us for a lot, as we'll see, of the days of the week, the word for day. Tuesday is devoted to the god of war, and in Romance languages, this is honoring Mars, the Roman god of war, which we can see in Spanish and in French, Martes, in Mardi in French, in celebration of the god of war. In German, it's a little bit more complicated in the etymology, but the Germanic god of war was Tyr, and the words in German and Swedish, but also in English, are derivations that are a little bit more complicated and a little bit less clear, but Tyr had a number of different variations of his name. Thinxus, Tivus, Kyus were different spellings and variations, all of which then found their way at some point to the word for Tuesday, Dienstag in German, Tisdag in Swedish. Wednesday is devoted to Wotan, or Wodin, or Odin, who was the king of all gods, sort of the Zeus within the Germanic pantheon of gods. And we can see then a relationship and derivation, Wednesday related to Wotan. In Romance languages, however, it's devoted to Mercury. And we can see that in the Spanish word miércoles, in the French mercredi, both then in honor and celebrating the god Mercury. Returning back to the Germanic languages and Odin, in German, however, they're much more pragmatic, and Wednesday is simply the middle of the week. Das ist die Mitte der Woche, Mitte und Woche. So Mittwoch is the word for Wednesday in German. However, the Swedes also recognize and celebrate Odin with Onsdag. Thursday is one of my favorite days of the week, and that is devoted to the Germanic god Thor. And we can see that pretty easily, I think, in Thursday, Thor's Day. And Thor, of course, you might know from the Marvel comics, or if you know a little bit about Germanic mythology, was the god of the sky and thunder. So starting on the Germanic languages, we see Thor in Swedish, Torsdag. In German, however, as I mentioned, he was the god not only of the sky, but of thunder, and Donner is the German word for thunder. So a lot of my students find that funny, and they remember two of Rudolph's reindeers being Donner and Blitzen, which are the German words for thunder and lightning. But thunder for the Germanic people were something that was very positive to them. That was a sign that Thor was in the sky, and the rumbling was him traveling in his chariot with a hammer, chasing down the giants and trying to save and protect the people in Midgard. So Donner, thunder, was something very positive for a lot of the Germanic peoples. In Romance languages, however, Thursday is devoted to Jupiter. And we see that in the Spanish jueves and in French jeudi. It's a celebration then of Jupiter. Friday is devoted to the goddess of love. In Romance languages, that would be Venus, which we see in the Spanish viernes and in the French vendredi. However, in Germanic languages, it is devoted to a very popular goddess, Freya, who also went by the name in some sources as Frigg. Friday, my students like to think, is a free day, because in German, frei is free, Tag is day, but in fact, it's related to this goddess of love and of spring, and was one of the most important and most beloved gods in the Germanic pantheon. So Fredag we see in Swedish, Freitag in German, and Friday in English. Saturday in English is devoted uniquely to Saturn. So Saturn's day, Saturday. Whereas in other languages, Spanish, French, and even in German, is more closely related to the Sabbath, which was the holy day, of course, for Jews, went from Friday to Saturday. The Sabbath, however, in the Christian tradition is more the seventh day of the week of Sunday. But in Spanish, we see sábado, which has its derivation from Sabbath. French, samedi, similarly so. As well as in German, it derives in a little bit more complicated way from Sabbath as well, in Samstag. In Swedish, however, we'll notice that the word is lördag, and we might be thinking initially it meant, well, that's the Lord's Day, which perhaps could have some sort of a relationship. But in fact, it comes from the ancient Icelandic word laugr, which means to wash. And this was a Viking tradition, and that Saturday was the day to bathe. So in Swedish, we still have a recognition of that in the word lördag, which is their name for Saturday. Finally, on Sunday, we see that it's in Romance languages, the day of our Lord, Domingo, Dimanche, in Spanish and in French. However, quite clearly in Germanic languages, English and in German and Swedish, it's the day of the sun. In English, quite clear. In German, die Sonne is the sun, Tag again. And in Swedish, Söndag is then the day of the sun. So that's the days of the week in 5 different languages: English, Spanish, French, German, and Swedish, a couple of Romance languages, and a couple of Germanic languages. And hopefully then that will help us get through this pandemic a little bit, and it'll make it a little bit easier to remember the days of the week. So have a great week, everybody.